So hello and welcome to the next session in our series of Accelerate Meets the World and its clients around our Salesforce practice. My name is Shahzad Khokhar. I run the Salesforce practice for Accelerate as a business. And then I have with me my friend, client, and peer, Ashaar Sheikh. He's the Chief Technology Officer for actually a couple of businesses, World Clinic and JobSite. And I'll let him introduce himself. But as a brief introduction to today's session, we kind of ventured on this particular project with Ashaar and his business last year, starting with the decision to actually help pick a platform, which Salesforce, of course, won on merit. And we'll have Ashaar talk about what the merits of selecting that as a platform were, and then in terms of kind of executing the project, what they've done across the multiple SKUs of Salesforce that they deploy. What is this hoopla about the HIPAA-compliant web forms that are now being stitched together through one of their business experiences. So Ashaar, welcome, first of all. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm super excited. We've obviously known each other for a very long time. But yeah, maybe you can tell the listeners right now just a little bit about your background, and then we can get into what you do at World Clinic and JobSite and some of the initiatives that you have currently running over there.
Sure. So as Shahzad mentioned, my name is Ashaar Sheikh, and just to make it easier on everybody, it's Ashaar like the singer. So
Yes.
and actually that's what Shahzad told me. That's how I should introduce myself, because that just makes it easier and more memorable. In any case, I run technology and infrastructure for World Clinic and JobSite Care. Similar businesses. Essentially, we are healthcare providers, telemedicine providers. For World Clinic, the audience is largely the high net worth individuals, families, and the other service that we do there is medical director on demand, which essentially is your senior executives in your organizations. And the other business that we have is JobSite Care. Again, similar use case, but slightly different in the sense that we're providing healthcare for workers that are in the field or on site. So companies hire us to be able to provide healthcare on site, and the type of services or type of industries that we're in are vertical construction or solar construction. We also have distributed workforce that we cater for. So multiple use cases essentially for providing healthcare to different type of verticals. And overall, coming back to World Clinic was our CEO, Dr. Dan Carlin. He basically is in the Guinness Book of World Records for doing the first telemedicine call. So
Wow.
in 1998, he did a telemedicine call in South Pacific for somebody who was actually sailing across the globe and had broken their elbow. So he basically over the phone got them to make sure that the elbow was set up in a way where once they reached the port, they were able to get to a doctor, a facility, and get the cast done on the elbow. So certainly something really big for us, where we were sort of the pioneers of telemedicine from that perspective. And then our CFO, Larry Rosenfeld, he's also a technology expert or technology enthusiast. He actually built a company and sold it to Oracle back in the 90s. So even though his title is financial officer, he's actually also a driving force behind the technology decisions that we make in the company. And again, with this role, it's not just the technology or development of the new platforms. It's also the infrastructure of the entire company, making sure that from the security perspective, network security, application security, we're making all the right decisions to protect the data for our patients and members.
Well, thank you. I did not know that you guys were in the Guinness Book of World Record. As a kid, right? That's the first thing you open up. You walk into the library, or nowadays, I guess it's your tablets. But that's phenomenal. And so I think
Yeah.
the name makes a lot of sense, right? Call going over someone in the middle of the sea and taking care of that elbow. Phenomenal. Larry, I happen to have met a few times, and yeah, I agree with you. He's an entrepreneur and a thinker and an idea man, end to end. So I should maybe start with some of the decision making around selecting Salesforce as the platform of choice, because I remember when I first spoke with Larry, this was you guys had a custom built kind of in-house built application that had been written for over, I believe, 5 or 10 years, right? It was a pretty massive application, and so porting that over could not have been an easy task. And so multiple decision points, I think, had to have been involved in terms of saying, look, it's a custom built application. Do we continue to build and support this? Do we move on to Salesforce? And then kind of creating that experience that we're going to talk about, right? Kind of that seamless patient experience across Experience Cloud, doing the patient intake and all the fun stuff that it kind of takes to create this white glove experience. Like you're saying, this exclusive clientele that you have, they expect a white glove sort of a treatment. So how did you guys pick Salesforce in terms of picking that as a platform?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. The platform that we were using originally was an in-house development done by our previous CTO. It was a Django MVT application. But right, the issue that we ran into was essentially the scale. Yeah, it's a purpose-built application, certainly. But then as you need to extend it to a larger customer base, we were facing challenges because it was built focused on a certain number of users, a certain number of customers, and some certain number of the clients that we had at that time. So we wanted to go to a platform that was much more scalable, had potentially unlimited ability to integrate with anything that we could think of. And then on top of that, Salesforce Experience Cloud, which essentially allowed us to build mobile apps and publish mobile apps. So we're actually a user of Mobile Publisher as well. So we built
Sure.
the applications or the mobile apps that we had in the field. We actually converted them to Salesforce experiences and then published them through Mobile Publisher. So we actually have apps for
Sure.
both iOS and Android platforms that you can actually download and sign in and use our customer experience and get into the system through that mechanism. So the first business essentially that we chose between the two that we chose to go with was job site care, because that's where we were scaling much faster than World Clinic. We had a stable user base on World Clinic, so which is gradually expanding. But job site care was expanding exponentially. So it was important for us to be able to continue to cater for different businesses that were in different construction verticals, and be able to essentially provide them with user interface where they could do the intake, and then also provide a very scalable mechanism, a very user-friendly mechanism for our providers, our physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants, and also the care team that actually supports them for all the paperwork that's involved in healthcare overall. So we wanted to build that on top of Salesforce. The reasons, again, as you said, were the scalability and ability to integrate across multiple product lines, the HIPAA compliance, or sort of the compliance documentation that Salesforce provides, ensuring that it's secure. The data is secure. It's going to stay in the U.S. because for HIPAA we wanted to ensure that our data stayed in the U.S. And then on the other side, on the customer experience side, we had the ability to build the user experience the way we wanted to build it, and then also publish it on the web, which is the default experience mechanism, and then also on the mobile apps. And so that was really the reason behind the use of Salesforce. Again, Shahzad, I think there was some of those meetings, we were together where that decision making was done. So
Sure.
I think it would be a good insight. It would be beneficial to get some of that insight from you as well, from your perspective, when you were going through that
Sure.
decision making.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. reusability, building for scale, and then mobile access. I think those were kind of the first few things that Larry had emphasized in my first conversation with her. And so I think one thing that, not that it gets left behind, but from an intake perspective, taking new patients in perspective and ease of that entire process of that intake, right? We all know intake is challenging, forms here, forms there, PDF documents, people are forgetting, they have to fill these forms in the clinic itself. With telemedicine, if you're never going in, how do you fill these in? How do you get them to people that need to look at this information before they can actually process you? Insurance, verification of benefits. So it can be a massive undertaking. And I think one of the key differentiators of what you guys are building is this ability with the mobile publisher that you guys have had access to and building on top of, right? Is regardless of the device, so to speak, that your patients and your users are on, they have that same uniform experience. And I think that kind of gets to that white glove of your clientele is not, you don't have hundreds of thousands of patients that you're processing, right? You have limited clientele. They expect a certain level of courtesy, a certain level of response time, a certain level of just ease of use, right? And transparency in that process. And so I think for me, what stood out as a unique requirement was just this ability of Experience Cloud with mobile publisher to create that white glove experience itself. So on that subject, can you talk a little bit about what the effort's been like to create that intake process? I think from what I understand, where you guys are, you've built kind of the end-to-end Experience Cloud-based process for one of the businesses, and you're building a second one, and that's where these HIPAA-compliant forms are now coming in. So maybe talk to us a little bit about the effort that it took, because I know you guys have an involved process, right? So it took a little while to get it done, but you have that, it's in production now, it's being used. So talk a little bit about what it took to get Experience Cloud live. And then once we take, kind of understand that better, I'd love to kind of get into what's the use case for these HIPAA compliant web forms that you're now embedding inside Experience Cloud.
Sure. So we have an in-house team, and then we also partner with the Accelerate to with some of the Salesforce expertise that Accelerate has. So basically, it all started from the existing system that we had. It was purpose built, and our providers love it. So we wanted to make sure that we give them that what they already have and more. So basically, we built similar data structures, similar user experience, but made it or tried to make it more streamlined for our users. So based on the number of patients that or members that they're catering for, they have an easier way to access information. The information is in their hands right away. The progress notes that they have to write, the reminders that they have to set automatically. So the patients that are still not that have not completed the treatment, we're still able to continue to follow up with them. And then on top of that, an easier mechanism for our customers to provide what the issue is or what the injury is, right? That we're treating for. So the challenge that we had on job site care was, in a traditional practice, a traditional medical practice, your patients because the patients come in, they fill in multiple forms, and that essentially provides the information to the provider that this is the patient and this is the injury that, or this is the issue that they're coming in for. In job site care, because these are work sites, the injuries are certainly bruises, bumps, thumbs that are broken, or fingers that are broken due to heavy machinery that they're using, or a lot of breaking the buildings that's happening at that site. So a lot of injuries that are that can be treated right away, so the patients don't have to go to urgent care and wait in the line for 2 hours to be treated. So we needed an easy mechanism for all these injuries to be able to provide our providers with the information about the patient, their name, date of birth, some of the information that we needed to get in contact with them, and then what was the nature of the injury and when it happened. So they have an idea about, and the location certainly, because not everything can be treated via telemedicine. You have to sometimes, depending on the situation, refer them to the closest medical facility, where we could basically bandage them up in a way where they're comfortable, and then we can send them to the closest facility. So our mechanism was like Experience Cloud. We built an experience site, and then, as I mentioned, we packaged it in mobile publisher, where it's accessible on a very platform agnostic way to different devices. So that's how we kind of went from a sort of web-based application that was very tightly controlled to a cloud application that is now accessible from anywhere. One of the challenges that we had from sort of the security perspective or network security perspective was our providers had to be connected to the VPN all the time in order to get into the application, which is certainly a challenge, because again, how many VPN connections can you support based on the size of the business, how many additional devices that you're going to put in. So whether we built a moat around the system or we protect the system. So Salesforce in itself is fairly tightly protected. Salesforce ensures that their security is up to par. And then the communities allow us to sort of build the experience the way we want to build. So there's the user exposed area and then the internal provider exposed area. So that's sort of how we came about building JobSite Care. It is in production. We've been using it since mid-May, when we had our launch mid-May this year, and I think we've already handled about 250, 300 cases in the new environment. So again, it's an ever improving process. We get more and more feedback from our users as they experience different items, different processes, different workflows. We continue to improve that, which again, I think is going to continue for a while. But we're going towards stability, and then we're also building new features. So that's the one stream of development that we've already sort of phase one is live, and the other stream is now World Clinic, which is similar use case.
Before you go to phase two, Ashaar, I'm sorry to kind of jump in, but I wanted to just quickly ask, what is the core platform? Assuming this is built on Health Cloud, and then the Experience Cloud experiences kind of stitched together with it, or is it sales and service? And that's what the Experience Cloud sits on.
So as I said, this is the platform is completely geared towards our needs. So we've actually built it based on the data structures that made sense to us. The providers basically didn't want to do 20 clicks to get to fill in a certain form. They wanted to put in notes that were free text. We have a data team headed by Rob Spatzer, who basically in practice is a nurse practitioner, but he's also our data analyst. And he basically then has the ability to go in, read through the notes, capture the important information that we need to capture, and put it in a more structured way. And I think we've also been looking into some of the AI models that we're hearing about every day. We've actually done a pilot on that as well, where we wanted to basically provide that information to AI and then convert that automatically into structured data. So again, that's a separate topic, hopefully for some other day. But basically, the idea was to create it in a way where the providers are working in the way they like to work. So it's built on Sales and Service Cloud, and then we have Experience Cloud on top of that. The providers, because we don't take insurance in a traditional way, we're fee-for-service based, so we don't have to really we didn't really have a need for the data model that Health Cloud provides. Certainly for the communication between systems, we're going to do will be FHIR compliant, but that didn't mean that we had to sacrifice on the user interface or the data structures that we needed to build to facilitate our providers. Hope that kind of answers the
yeah. That was just because it's you can go either or depending on, like you said, this is purpose built to what you guys' use case was. So I just want to make sure that for those listening and or will be watching later, there's a end-to-end kind of picture on what is the totality of the SKUs from Salesforce. So we'll get into the kind of the HIPAA compliant forms next. But I'm curious if the marketing team, which is helping and doing all the work in the back end over there, Kayla and Katvik are actually on, if you guys can put the first poll up, guys. I'm just curious if those of you that are online as attendees, if you can maybe answer this question for us, if you currently are using Experience Cloud, for patient engagement or not, and if not, if you're interested in doing something like that, it may be a conversation worth having. So we'll put that poll out. I guess the question for you, Ashaar, then now is, what is the HIPAA compliant web form technology that you're using, and what was the need for embedding something like that within Experience Cloud, right? Because you can technically build out forms directly within Experience Cloud. So why the need to have a third-party technology embedded within?
So again, pros and cons, but typically we wanted to avoid a lot of technical debt that we had to, if we had to build it in Experience Cloud. The forms are something that are that have to be updated fairly quickly, fairly regularly, based on the types of information that we collect. So that's one reason why it made sense for us to use OB as the form builder, and because these web forms are more focused on building the feature set of collecting the information, it was much easier for us to actually build it in a web form than in Experience Cloud. Again, we do have expertise on both, but because the amount of changes that can come in and that can come in quickly, it made sense to use web forms to collect all of that data. And then with web forms, the ability to actually store all of that in multiple objects, right? So you don't really have to be confined to one object or build all those objects in Salesforce before utilizing them in web form. So because this data is transient, we want to collect this data and then put it in, have a verification layer where our care team is able to look at that data, verify whether the information is accurate, based on the names of medications or the types of allergies, and then in some cases the problem codes that are internally needed for sending people to imaging centers, for example, right? So those problem codes, the patients are not going to know those problem codes, right? So basically then providing the ability to make it easier for user to provide the information, or right, giving the ability to the user to provide the information in a cleaner way, and then having the ability to also go back in with the Salesforce backend to update that information. So there are times where, again, these intake forms, again, we're talking about the World Clinic use case where we know who our members are, unlike JSC where we didn't know, job site care, we didn't know who our patients could be. So we have the intake done through the intake form. It's very episodic, and it's not long-term care. So World Clinic is long-term care. These are our members. We want to make sure that we capture the information every year, because we need to have consents and collect the information from the user if there's been any changes every year as part of HIPAA as well. So it made sense for us to build this in web forms, collect the information, get the updates as soon as we need it. The users, again, these are high net worth individuals. They may or may not have time to fill in the 6-page forms in a single go. So they maybe we wanted to provide them the flexibility to provide that information over a period of time. And then also provide the care team that actually supports the medical staff with the ability to vet the data, ensure everything is correct before it actually goes into the appropriate objects that go into Salesforce, right? So it's a transient data. We're going to use it once a year to collect the information. Do we need to actually build structures in Salesforce that are a copy of the existing structures, or we basically build it and store the data using the UI that's available, and then transfer it over across? So we do still have to build the objects, but the objects are much more confined to themselves, a single object that can store the information, and then we build the relationships outside after the data is verified. So that seemed like a perfect use case for the web.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that you explain it to me, it makes all the logical sense. Right. It just may not have been obvious to me. And of course, you have your own flavor of how you're running this. A post, selection of the platform. I was obviously personally involved when you guys picked the platform, but since then you've really kind of taken on and kind of built your and the rest of the business's vision for the platform. So maybe talk a little bit about the web forms, HIPAA compliant forms platform of choice, and if there was anything in particular that made you pick the platform that you ended up picking.
So we've chosen OpenBots, certainly. One, we already have in-house team from Accelerate, which kind of really helped choosing the platform, because they were really already onboarded onto the platform. And then the expertise, Shahzad, that yourself and the team provides from like a consulting perspective was also very important to us. And the feature set itself, it's a growing platform, so it was and being a customer of OB, with some personal relationships within the organization, we were able to also provide some feature set or request some feature set which was delivered to us. So I think all of those provided us the reasoning behind using the platform. Again, it's a newish platform, still being developed. So there's a lot that can be done with the platform. The specifically the bots, that kind of the orchestration of the bots, that is the RPA, that portion of the form, that's also very helpful if you want to do automation of, like, files that you would receive from, like, in a fax, for example. Not everybody is comfortable filling in a web form. They might have just, because we have Word forms or PDF forms that we can send to the users, and they want to fax it back. So multiple input points are available, and OB kind of takes care of basically all those check boxes. Like if you want to do the web form, if you want to do a PDF that you want to read, a fax that you've received. So multiple ways of getting the same data and then moving forward and sort of representing it within Salesforce.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so I'm kind of connecting the dots here with some of the conversations that I've had even with my own team when they come in and ask about solutioning for this particular platform. So I think it makes sense because holistically, the RPA platform, by picking an RPA platform as opposed to just a form stack, right, you're actually able to accomplish a lot more from a use cases perspective. You have a single place for forms. You have a single place for potential EMR integrations. You have a single place for IDP, right? And now that IDP also has GPT in it, you can basically take those faxes, fax-based referrals, like you're mentioning, directly convert them into referral records or, patient records in Salesforce. So, okay, it makes sense that you picked it, you picked the platform of choice based on all the use cases and not just the forms themselves.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a larger platform than just the forms, right? So it made sense for us to choose something that will expand with us.
Okay. I'll have if the marketing team can put out the second poll now, which is if anyone's looking for these HIPAA compliant forms for intake, just curious to learn what those use cases may be. You can actually type if you have any questions. There's a Q&A window if you guys want to type in your questions in there, or you can obviously email us after as well if you have any questions. Okay, so so it looks like, Ashaar, so you guys picked sales and service for core. That's where the physicians are, and then you have your Experience Cloud. That's how you guys do the intake. They may be in remote places, and you have the mobile, the mobile pusher app to kind of create that experience. And now for like this ubiquitous access for filling forms out, you're implementing the HIPAA compliant web forms. What if there are other CTOs, and there are a few that are listening, there are actually some Salesforce folks also listening in. Maybe can you share maybe like I don't know, 1 or 2 or 3 sort of implementation experiences or lessons that you may want to share with them, or any gotchas, as in, be aware of X, Y, Z, just your overall, based on the experience that you've had in building the platform now. If there are any things that you can share with them in terms of just, your expertise, your lessons learned.
Yeah, I think Salesforce user interface, the Lightning interface, while it's great, there are challenges when you're actually working with the customers, because um, you know the beauty of Salesforce is they've made the Lightning web components more accessible, more usable, more configurable. So you're not relying solely on the Lightning platform out of the box. You can actually build Lightning components on top of that. So when as a Salesforce user, I see things as very clear to me. When I have to click here, I have to go then click here, and then that's how I submit the form or I complete my information. But that might not be the most streamlined way for our users. For them, it is, hey, why do I have to go click here to add 5 sets of information here, and then go into a child object and then add 5 other things in that child object? It's just disconnected. How do I connect that? So I think those have been some of the challenges where we were able to build like reusable Lightning Web components to make the intake for our providers an easier process. Some of the auto pop-up type of mechanisms, where if like a case, if an encounter with a patient is already open, we want to make sure that the providers don't forget to set up reminders from this for themselves, right? So it doesn't happen automatically in Salesforce. You actually have to go in and set a reminder. So ability to automatically pop up a reminder every time you save an encounter, just basically putting stuff in the users in front of the user, front and center, so they don't forget that they have to set up reminders for themselves for a future use. Yes, it is an additional click if somebody does not need to put a reminder, but again, that's controllable, right? So all the
Sure.
users that need to see those reminders, they get the reminders directly pop in front of them. But then there are users that are looking at the data, reading the data, and they don't want to see the reminder. So setting up these type of user interface elements in a way where it's very configurable was something that we found, while it wasn't available out of the box, but Salesforce essentially was able to provide platform for us to build it out. I think that's been the biggest one. Other than that, handling the data structures behind the scene, you still have to build those data structures, whether you handle them through a single UI. And then some of the quirks that Salesforce has, you always have to have a name field, whether it's auto number or something. So that's also for end users. It can be challenging at times when they ask us, why do I have to see this number? And when I go into this child record, can you not make the other fields clickable? And again, you can't. That's what some of the things
Okay.
that, yeah. So you got to train them on. So we actually had a 4-day training that we set up for our users in a hotel room in where our in Pennsylvania, in Eastern area, where we're kind of central to everybody from New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania that was attending the meeting. And that was a good way for us to sort of get everybody in the room, get some energy going, and then be able to get feedback right at the spot as we were doing the training. Even though we've done UATs, we had done a lot of pilots, but we still wanted to do that in-person training, especially after COVID. You wanted to get the people together in a room,
Sure.
and sort of see the energy as more and more people come together. So it was a great experience to have them together, and then have them be trained on the new platform, and sort of have them contrast it to their existing platform in terms of ease of use, and some of the quirks that they already had in the previous system, a bespoke system, which again we had alternative means of building within Salesforce. So seeing all of that in action, and sort of getting that muscle memory developed for the user, so they're now comfortable clicking in the right spots for looking up the information that they needed to look up to.
How is Ashaar? So that's a great point. I mean, a lot of times when we scope out exercises like these, or even for folks that are project sponsors, they might not necessarily on day one think about adoption and or training and sort of this ongoing energy and effort that it takes to make such a large undertaking a success. So can you, like, from a change management perspective and or like a knowledge sharing perspective or an adoption perspective, talk a little bit about, so yes, you got everyone in a room, 4 days, everyone had a good time, they learned, right? That was like a super duper UAT that you guys went through. But then what happens once folks go back, right? What kind of change management or adoption strategies are you kind of leveraging to make sure people continue to kind of thrive in this new system?
Yeah. So one of the methodologies, and Shahzad, you're probably familiar with that. We've been calling it hypercare, basically white glove treatment for our users, where everybody that's using the system is available in the system, is sort of part of that chat. So we were hosting office hours every day, and then
Oh, wow.
we were also hosting a chat called hypercare, so people that are not really they don't want to speak in a larger meeting, they were able to put in questions in the hypercare chat, or directly to us. So we continued to handhold them and make sure everybody who needed information, because it's a new system, in most cases they didn't know where to click exactly to get the information, or even if they knew as part of the training, it was just a reminder for them, hey, go there and find that information. So that's been very successful for us. People have actually been asking questions, and we kind of started to we did it for 3 weeks initially, and then we kind of extended that, and we just kept it running. We don't see a lot of questions there now, but we still have that chat open. So if anybody ever has a question, they can put it there. We use it as our sort of phase 2 or intake mechanism for future enhancements, or bugs, if there are any, or essentially be able to provide a sort of a service desk for our users, which again everybody now knows that it's sort of less 24/7 support than
Sure.
than just the office hour support, but it's still there to provide the users that confidence that they can ask any question in there, and there's no question that that's a stupid question. Everything is acceptable, it's a valid question, and we'll address that. And if we don't have an answer for them, we'll actually put that in our backlog and get that developed.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you. Once again, I think this has been very insightful. I'm still looking at some of these questions here. So I'm gonna start throwing them your way. And I can help co-answer some of these with you. But there's some logistics related question, like how large is your Salesforce team that is building this? How long have you guys been at it? And is it like a 1-year thing? Is it a 5-year plan? What does kind of your roadmap look like? And what's your team size, right? That's kind of the question. I'm elaborating on the question, but the question here is, what's your team size? How many Salesforce folks do you have on your team, and how long did it take you guys to complete something so substantial?
So we have our project manager slash BA. She's our director of project management, very outgoing BA. And then we have a junior BA that works with her. We have 5 Salesforce developers, and then we also have 3 Salesforce QA. That team is now going to be extended to 2 more resources, and all those Salesforce QA resources are actually certified in Salesforce as well. And some of the we're bringing 2 more in, which again trying to build a sort of a training program for fresh graduates, and trying to get sort of new people trained on Salesforce, running that sort of paying it back the way we got trained. So getting new resources, fresh resources out of school, and getting them trained on Salesforce under some of our senior guys, some of our senior QA resources. So that's sort of the team structure. Now that we're starting another project, we basically are looking for one more, currently sort of interviewing for one more resource, in the development area. Again, we've kind of finalized that, and build the team in a way where one team would be focused on new development and the other team would be focused on sort of the phase 2 and the ongoing support of job site care.
Okay.
And we have sort of the contractors that work with us in the capacity of solution architecture, which is, again, it's a big help, even if they're spending 25% of their time or 50% of their time.
No, it's obviously a sizable team, and it's so, and again, you take something that had took half a decade or so to build and deploy, and what users love. It's a sizable effort to kind of replicate that, choose a brand new platform, get users to adopt to that new platform. And again, you don't have one SKU, right? There are multiple SKUs and there are multiple experiences for a very demanding audience, so to speak, right? Just like your clientele are demanding, your internal users are demanding. So I think that level of sophistication is where the high level of effort is required to kind of meet that level of sophistication that your users and your clients actually demand.
Yeah, no, I won't use the word demanding, but I think it's the experience that they have because they're using it every day. We want to make sure that it's streamlined to their needs. If there's an additional click that we can solve for or we can reduce, we want to go ahead and do that, because at the end of the day, if they're seeing 50 patients a day, at additional click essentially means 50 times additional clicks that they have to do per patient, for example. So we want to try and reduce that and make the user interface more streamlined. And they're the front line of our user base and sort of the new requirements that come in. So absolutely, I agree to that. It's been a big undertaking, and phase 1 kind of gives us now that edge to build on top of. The foundation has been set up, and now we can continue to build on top of that.
Okay, I'll take one more question, and then we can, unless there are any more questions, we can end our conversation there. But there's somebody asked about the platform that you have being available for a demo. Obviously, I can answer that just from running a Salesforce practice perspective. These are proprietary systems that belong to customers individually, so they typically won't demo. Salesforce will happily do demo of these products. We can help schedule and coordinate those demos on your behalf. But Ashaar, if you want to just, I just wanted to give you a little bit of that, and then you can build on that answer. But people are really curious. I think what you built is really valuable, is unique. It kind of creates that experience that a lot of providers are trying to build. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a reference conversation or whatnot, but it looks like there's interest in just looking at perhaps what you had built.
Yeah, no, we'd be happy to connect with the folks that are looking to build a similar practice. Again, we as a concierge practice, we collaborate with other concierge practices, and again, if somebody's interested in using our services of concierge medicine, I'd be happy to put them in touch with the right people, so they can get more information about how to protect their loved ones and their own health in a sort of in a way where a providers is accessible to them within 90 seconds, and they don't have to wait for
phenomenal, really. Wow.
It's really in the queue at an urgent care or a hospital. They have providers right away at a phone call away.
Okay, I think I would end the Q&A there. Ashaar, thank you so very much. I think that this has been very insightful. I learned a lot, and I've been a part of the project, but I think there's some intricacies, there's some delicacies that happen over time as you guys make decisions and kind of morph the process into what the team's vision itself is. So perhaps we can come back next year around the same time and look at where the HIPAA compliant web forms are at that point in time, and how the adoption is going at that point in time, how the team is doing. Please say, give Larry and the team our regards, and thanks again for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me for this talk, Shahzad, and the team. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Accelerate team, take care, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.